We have only 35 chambers. There is no 36.
I know that. But I want to create a new chamber.
And what would that be?
I think Shaolin techniques should be available to all. So then, that's my idea for a new chamber. To teach the martial arts to the people. Anybody.
Welcome back to another episode of My 3 Cents. Let's talk about some more symbolism today, since I kind of touched on that last episode, because everything in itself is symbolic of something else, and we know that already. So nothing is what we would call an original. There is no such thing as that. There can be things in different forms that look like something you've never seen before. In that aspect, it can be original, but in essence, it is just a reformation of something else, right? There's nothing new under the sun. So last episode, we kind of talked about a little bit of Bible symbology. I know I mentioned Helios Biblios, just the fact that it was the book of the sun. This is a celestial book. This is an informational book. And right now, I just want to just ping around a little bit and connect a few dots on some symbols. So we spoke about Genesis being genetics and, the reason for the naming of that book. Now, when you're talking about the Bible, remember, Genesis is the newest book that belongs to the Bible. It's the newest book, not the oldest book. So just because it's in the front doesn't mean that it was written first. You got to get these ways of thinking out of your mind if you've never researched how these different books were put together, these different religious books or informational books. So Genesis just means genetics. So this is why they start with it in the beginning, because they're talking about the essence of man. They're talking about you. 7 days of the week is the seventh chakra. I want to go a little more into that. Let's see. You get into Exodus, where they talk about, the word Exodus only means a large number of people exiting from a land or, leaving at the same time, right? That's Exodus. So what they were trying to portray in that book was the fact that, Moses had to go in and rescue the people from the Caucasus Mountains. We know that these are metaphors. This is why you have the word Caucasian or the Caucasian. Cauc just means dead, or caucus. That's where the same word comes from, caucus, or whatever you want to call it. The actual dead body structure. That comes from the same term, right? These are the Caucasus Mountains in Asia, Eurasia, whatever you want to call it. It's related to, in my opinion, it's all Africa, because, if we know original man's genetics come from that area, and he was a creature of the sunlight, right? Because he was obviously created by this energy of this place, the earth peoples. So we got to understand that before the lands broke up from Pangea, everything was connected. And, the first people of all these different lands were dark-skinned, melanated people. All right, so we can get past the whole race thing. It's not that important if you understand it. If you know what you're talking about, you don't have to argue. That's like when we say what's understood don't have to be explained. So when you know what's going on, you can kind of let the conversation go, and you can accept that people are where they are, and they're going to understand and understand at their level. You can't, quote unquote, wake people up. That's not a thing. That only leads to you frustrated because you have a level of suffering in you now that you've created, because people aren't getting what you're trying to give. And that's the thing, you're trying. And when you find yourself trying, that's when you find yourself failing, right? And you might say, well, when you try, you can also succeed. But the thing is, you normally only succeed when you don't try. That's called being in the zone. That's doing, not doing, right? Way. Which just means, you are existing, but you are not getting in the way of existence. You see, that's doing, not doing. So that's a point that a lot of people haven't gotten to yet. And that is one of the places you want to be. The doing, not doing, the way, the Zen state, the meditation that exists even when you're walking around. So When we're talking about the Caucasus Mountains, the Caucasians, right? The dead Asians, the genetically dead Asians, okay? So you're looking at genetics, you're looking at DNA. You're talking about how the DNA strand of a melanated person is extremely long in comparison to the strand of a Caucasian, which is extremely small, okay? So we're just talking about DNA strands at this point. All right? And like I've said before, this means that model of the human has the least opportunity to become anything other than what he was created to be. And that's why you cannot try to change a creature. A fish doesn't make a bird become a swimmer, right? They don't spend their time trying to convince them that it's better in the water. But that is something that humans do. You see? So that is only a reflection of yourself. You trying to convince somebody that anything else is correct is a reflection of you. And so that's even why I try to approach this from a standpoint of sharing information and not trying to get you to believe anything. That way you can just go look some stuff up when it crosses your mind again and it clicks back and says, oh, okay, I heard him talking about that. I want to find out more about that. That's all I'm perceiving myself as doing. So it's doing, not doing. If I was going into this with intention, I might be getting in the way of its intent. You see? So the wind doesn't argue with the wind and say, well, I'm trying to blow here, you need to blow over there, right? There's a continuous relationship of doing, not doing, right? It's moving without judgment, right? It's being aware of being unaware. Okay, if that makes sense. That makes sense to you. So, talking about Exodus, you're just talking about the Caucasians, and they're talking the metaphor about the creation of that creature, the Caucasian. We know this bleeds into Hitler and stuff like that, where they came with the neo-Nazis, where they actually were trying to create a race that had no lineage to melanated people. That's just that. This whole thing's about melanin, always. That's what they wanted to get rid of in the genetics of their people, right? They wanted to have blonde hair, blue eyes. They wanted to be as far away from what we were to feel comfortable as themselves, right? Because other than that, you would have to pay homage to where you really came from. And if you want to live in a place of denial, you would just say, well, I will create something different. And they use people for experimentation. We know that. We know what they did with the Jewish people. We know that a lot of that was experimentation based on melanin. And it wasn't just pure hate. I mean, this was a science-driven thing that happened. And that's the aspect that a lot of people don't talk about in this country. Why? Why don't they talk about the science behind what happened and why they were killing all those people? Along with Africans, too. They killed a lot of different people because these were experimentations, right? But the reason why is because they were based on melanin. And we won't talk about that in this country because when this era was over and when we had kind of got them to stop doing what they were doing, what did we do? We hired a bunch of their scientists and we brought them over here. And they started to work for us. What's the difference? So we're watching power struggles and we're choosing sides when we don't need to be in the fight, quote unquote, at all. Right? It's really unnecessary. So this is what the neo-Nazis, all that stuff was about. And then you get into the little signs and the swastikas, which was originally a peace sign. A lot of people don't know these are just symbols. You can take a symbol and use it for whatever you want. That's up to you. But that's not what that symbol means. That's what we're talking about, symbology. We're talking about things being symbolic. But what ends up happening here a lot is that we start giving value to the symbol. And for some reason, we don't like to go beyond what's being put on top of the symbol and trace the symbol back to where it comes from, only to understand it was you the whole time. The symbol is going to be related to you every time. Because you are a rendition of everything put in the form that you are in. You are a piece of the harmony. That's why I say your cosmic reflection is the universe. The universe, the one harmonious tune, frequencies. We're all a piece of the song, the one song that's being sung, and it's called Earth and Existence and Now. That's the name of the song. We're all singing it. We got to stop making ourselves so small, because that makes the things we do petty. We got to stop blowing up small things, especially if we're just going to get lost in what we're finding. If that's going to be the case, then don't even look under the rug, because you need to stay on the surface if that's what you need. So symbols is what rules this whole thing, man. And this is why religions were created, secret societies, knowledge, esoteric knowledge, whatever you want to call anything. The only reason something would be deemed a secret is because somebody didn't want somebody else to know. Now, it's all inclusive to this place, so there is no secrets. But you have people that have put certain things in certain categories. And why do we know that's true? Because people have died over information before. People have been killed out of their bodies, knocked out of their bodies. And say, man, you're messing the game up. You're tilting the scales. We're playing the game the way we want it played. We'll knock you out the body. We'll send you to the other place. We'll send you to the unseen. And here is this big traumatic thing because we're in this form. But when you understand what's really happening, this is a type of drama cycle that continues to happen with all kind of crescendos and frequencies and bass lines and tempos, all in one song, the universe. The universal tone, and we all play to our own beats. That's why you have a heartbeat. That is your metronome. That is your tempo setter. When that heart beats fast, it's normally because the action turned up, right? When you meditate, it slows down because this is just a representation of the tune that you're on. Heart chakra. This is why the love frequency can be radiated, because when you're in love and you feel love, and when you're connected to that energy, your heart will beat that. See? So this is the power of heart chakra. Everything is symbolic. When they're talking about Jesus, a lot of people do not understand that that's not a person. I'm sorry. You misunderstood. It's not a person. That's not a person. That's a persona. It's just as much as a figure of speech and how you get meaning from that. It's no different. It's something that is created in a form that you can get and catch the lessons, because ultimately it has to be you. This whole thing that you're calling reality is sitting in the back of your head, in your brain. Electronic impulses that give you what we refer to as senses. Sensation. A sensational event called life. Right? So you got to realize that ultimately there's nothing outside of you. This whole thing is you. Your perception of this whole thing is the mirror being held up to you. And when you look in that mirror, you see you and everything behind you. Every time you look in the mirror, you see you and everything behind you. See? This is all symbolic representations. So the character of Jesus was originally, we know, when you want to go way back, you're going to be talking about Heru, and you're going to be talking about Horus, Osiris as the god, Isis, Mary, and all this stuff, right? But you got to understand, those weren't people either. There was no bird-faced man. There was no Thoth that looked like a damn pelican or I forget what, a stork. No, these are symbols. They are representations of energies that have personas and names, because if they didn't, how would we talk about them? How would we pass the depictions and the distinctions between all the different energies if not to put them in a human form through persona, which we could give them life in themselves? That's the reason. You weren't supposed to find one and worship it. You were supposed to at some point understand that all these things you're trying to understand are you, and you will not fuse those things until you overstand. And with overstanding comes a lot of letting go, because in life comes a lot of indoctrination, and it begins as soon as you can understand. It starts. The first question they want to see you answer as a baby and as a child is what? Do you understand me? When they find out you understand them, here comes the onslaught of this is how your life is supposed to be, and this is how you are supposed to be. This is when that starts. So the Jesus character, if you just, let's move it all the way up to Christianity, where we know that the Bible is a compilation of many different knowledges all the way back from, you got Melchizedek in the Bible, you got Tetragrammaton in the Bible from Hebrew, you got everything everywhere from the Torah. We know the Torah just means, Torah comes from the same place that the word wheel comes from. Torah means rotate. Wheel is what it translates to. Wheel, cycle. This place, earth, life. The book's about you. It's about an experience that can be everyone's experience. But if you think that it's about a character, and they knew that some people would, so they built religion, and they said, well, look, we'll give them a place to come, and they can just keep calling the same names over and over, which we know that's a cult, but we'll let them do that if that will keep them moral, if that will keep them moralistic, moralized, good, listening, in order, right? Reaching for something that's not attainable until you die from the body. Just think about that. That is a masterful trick. Masterful. I can get you to believe something where you'll give me everything your whole entire life. And guess what? The part I'm going to give you, your promise, it comes when you're out the body. Are you kidding me? Oh, wow. We know that religion shuts down one side of the brain, and it's not the creative side that thinks and invents. To give you a hint, look this stuff up. So when you enter into church, by the way, church comes from the word Circe, which traces back to Greek mythology, which is an energy that they named Circe, which what Circe did, and this is how they explain to you what an energy is by its name, right? We know that the name means nature. What is the nature of this thing? So when you look up a name, it's going to be a list of attributes. This is why things have certain names. Circe was a creature that took people in a hypnotic way. And once they got into her place, she would get them to give them everything, give her everything, and make it hard for them to leave. This is Circe. This is church. It's where the word church comes from. Circe. Look it up. These are harsh realities, but you got to take this stuff apart, because there is a such thing as cognitive dissonance. And it's when the brain has been indoctrinated and taught so well that it will almost be like a computer crashing if you're trying to press a button combination that the computer does not know you can press. Right? That's cognitive dissonance. It can't understand that. And it'll scramble. It'll crash, possibly. tantrum. So we got to understand that going back to the Jesus character, the actual name was Jesus the Christ, right? This isn't a first last name thing. So if you're thinking that, you're already way off of what this really is. You're far from it. It was Jesus the Christ. People say, well, his name wasn't Jesus. There was no J back then during that time. Okay, yeah, we get that. Because guess what? It's made up anyway. Stop trying to compare it to real time because it's not history. It's not real historic facts. Yes, they did combine it with historic places, but the time periods they stuck them in, when you go to those real life places, there is no mention of any of that stuff in their literature. You see? That's another way you can cross-reference. Go back to the places they talk about. The stuff ain't there. None of it. It's not even in those people's history. None of it. You're getting this from one source down one pipeline that splits into hundreds of pipelines. It's sickening. Nowadays, you say you're a Christian, and then somebody says, well, what kind? Because there's hundreds. I'm Episcopalian. I'm this, I'm that. Seventh Day, I'm non-denominational. It's like, what are we talking about? What are these codes? How intricately are we into this thing now? That it's hard to get out of because it's become such a big part of you, right? Jesus the Christ. We know that they say, okay, if he wasn't Jesus, then they say stuff like Yahweh. And I'm going to take you down that road in a second because I've been down that road. Christ, right? Christ comes from the word Christo, which translates to oil. So Christ is meant to mean a sacred type of oil that is formed in the body. This is why they take the oil and they cross it on your forehead, on your third eye, and they put that cross right there to block that knowledge. You think it's a coincidence that they're choosing the same exact spot to try to put their thing? Come on. They know that the light comes through right there. They know that that's the internal clock and determines when you wake up and when you need to lay down because it knows when it's day and night. That's the thing that does that to your body. You see? It's not a coincidence that they put the oil right there and they try to cross it. Come on. So Jesus the Christ, this was Christo, this was sacred oil, this was a knowledge about Christ consciousness, third eye chakra. Anybody can become Christ consciousness, third eye chakra, but you can't become crown chakra unless you go through third eye chakra. So when they say there's no way to the Father except by the Son, the light, the pineal gland, the third eye chakra, they're telling you the truth, but they're not giving it to you in a way that it will make sense to you actually, to where you wouldn't have to come back and hear it again next Sunday and take it again like medicine. And I need my refill every week because I'm weak, because I've been in 7 days. I've been in a daze all week. And now we have church on the weekend when I'm weakened. And I need it. You see, this is all designed to be this way. When the sun's shining the hardest on Sunday, go indoors and listen to talking. Rhetoric. You see? It's really a day for sun worship. But you're indoors, so the whole thing is oxymoronic anyway. So when we're talking about Christ consciousness and the knowledge of Jesus the Christ, we're talking about Yahweh, right? We said that there was no J. His name was, they called him Yahweh. Okay, well, when you trace Yahweh, Yahweh is Hebrew. And first of all, in English, we read things from left to right. you might not know that in all other countries, in all other languages, things are read from right to left. Except things like Mandarin, which are just symbols, where they use symbols to convey more information. We have broken them down all the way into individual symbols that we call letters that we put into word form, which is a form of magic. This is why it's called spelling. It's a form of casting energy, because things that become written down or thought of and imagined become real in a certain place. And it's that close to manifesting. It's realer than it was once you write it down, once you draw it, once you say it, once you think it. So these are the symbols that are constantly being used. So when we're talking about Yahweh, you have to read it the opposite direction, first of all, to even pay respect to where that came from. Now, when you trace back Yahweh, you get to understanding that Yahweh means something else. It means tetragrammaton. Tetragrammaton is 4 words. Tetra is tetragramma and ton. Or gram and aton. Whichever way it's divided is 4 sounds. These represent the 4 words from what you're looking at as the 4 letters, the Yahweh. Okay? What is tetragrammaton? Well, like I just said, it's how you pronounce Yahweh in Hebrew. But what does it mean? When you look up the word tetragrammaton, it's going to show you a shape. Not just any shape, but it is a shape that encompasses all shapes. This is what they call God. The closest you can get to an actual thing called God is this shape called tetragrammaton, which is spelled Yahweh, W-H-Y-H, or W-H-W-Y, or something like that. I'm trying to say it backwards, because I know forwards is Y-H-W-H, so it's H-W-H-Y, right? This is Yahweh, the proper way. This is tetragrammaton. Think about what I'm telling you. Tetragrammaton is a shape. It's mathematics. It's supreme mathematics. It's every shape combined into one shape. It's perfect. That is what they are referring to as the God that they are putting in the Bible and making stories around. This perfectness, this thing that is over everything because it is everything. It's a shape. And when they show you how they calculate the tetragrammaton shape, it's amazing in a way, because in Hebrew, the symbols all have number values. You got to study Hebrew. Go beyond the Bible. You gotta study Hebrew and see that all the shapes have number values. So what they do is they take Yahweh and they know how to lay Yahweh out a certain way to where it keeps spelling Yahweh in this triangle. And within this triangle or pyramid, it is actually bringing the value to, if I'm not mistaken, the value is 72. I'm not looking at it right in front of me, but if I'm not mistaken, the value comes out to 72. This is why you have the 72 names of God. This is where that comes from. This is how it links to Yahweh or the Godhead. It's just coded information. That's where you get the 72. You get it from the tetragrammaton. From the tetragrammaton, you get Yahweh. From Yahweh, you get Jesus or Yeshua and all that stuff, and you keep tracing it back and calling it something different. But it's already a copy. It's already just a copy of a story that's already been told anyway. That's Isis, Osiris, and Heru or Horus. It's all the same stuff. It's all the same stuff. It's not a big deal. You don't have to subscribe to it. It's information. Ultimately, it's for you to understand yourself more. That's why you're here. You're not on earth to worship something. You are a spirit. What sense would it make to be a spirit, be put into physical form to worship something in spirit form? Isn't that weird? Just think about it. There is no character in the game more important than another character in the game. Jesus is something that anybody can attain. Anybody can be Jesus. They told you as a kid, watch how you treat people because they could be Jesus. They told you that. They told you that. Because that can be, they don't understand what they're saying, but it's true. It can be anyone. Anybody can reach Christ consciousness. The Bible tells you where two eyes become one. A light will fill the body. This is pineal gland knowledge. It's all the same stuff, but if you don't break it down, if you don't have anybody giving you the codes or just helping you not think that you're crazy for questioning things, you could actually get somewhere. I told you revelation just means revolution or cycle, complete cycle. That's why it's at the end. That's why they're talking about the 7 lampstands, the 7 churches, the 7 heads, all this stuff. These are the 7 chakra. Anywhere you see 7, it is the chakra. Anywhere you see 12, it is not only the 12 zodiac, but it is also the 12 major systems of the body, because those two things are one and the same. You are just a different form of that. Your organs are the planets. That is why your chakras sit in your organs. Chakras, organs, planets, days of the week, any 7 you can find, that's what it is. That's why it takes 7 days to complete the cycle and start it over again. That is symbolic of your life. You came through the prism and shined into the 7 different colors that create your chakra. You're in the body form, the prism body, the cell, the cellular structure. You go to prison, it's full of cells. Do you think it's a coincidence? Or do you know that they study you more than you study yourself? And they know how to recreate you all over the place and actually imprison you within yourself. And you are none the wiser. It's a deep game. So when I break down Revelation, look, I've had that episode prepared for over a year. My thing is this. It's a heavy episode. I got to feel the right time to drop that because it's going to unlock a lot of people. I'm going to show you that the 666 is just carbon. It tells you in the Bible that the 666 is the number of man. 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons. It says it. It says it is just the number of a man. You are the beast they are referring to. The 7 churches are just the 7 chakra. I'm going to walk you through the 7 churches and show you how it starts at root chakra and brings you all the way up to Christ consciousness and then crown chakra. This is the revolution or the revelation of self. This is what they're referring to. When they talk about being on the Isle of Patmos, you know what Patmos means? It's a place in the back of the spine where the spine and the brainstem connects. If you look up the definition, it actually talks about a skull in the Bible when they refer to Patmos, because that is the code. That is only referring to your spine, your spinal connection. That's why they say he looked back. You see, you got to read Revelation a certain way. And I'll give you a hint if you want to look into it early. To know what Revelation is about, you got to understand numbers and how this whole thing was created. 5 is phi, which is nature. Go to chapter 5. Start there. The 5th chapter will show you what Revelation is about. Then you go back to chapter 1. You see? It has to start with nature. These are codes. I'm going to show you some other stuff that's going to shock you when we get into it too. But moving forward, let's just talk about more symbology. So we spoke on Christ consciousness a little bit. We spoke on Yahweh, Tetragrammaton. You can look all that stuff up. It's amazing when you look into it. Tetragrammaton is even mentioned in the Bible, so that lets you down a little bit more once you find out what it is. And then you see that it's mentioned in the Bible. You're like, oh, what kind of games are they playing? They already knew about this. Yeah, of course they did. The thing is, you don't. That's the point. Jacob's ladder. This is all about the chakra, the systems of the body. These are all metaphorical stories. Adam and Eve. This is atom, the atom, which contains the cells. And within the cells, you have something called mitochondria. Within the mitochondria, you have something called the Eve mitochondria. And within the Eve mitochondria, it has its own set of DNA. This is the beginning. You see? But they're giving it to you in a weird way. So yes, Eve did come out of Adam, but not people. It was the Eve mitochondria in the cell of the atom. You see? That is the feminine energy, the Eve mitochondria. So there's a lot that they're not telling you that tells the rest of the story. When you're talking about the days of the week, you're talking about these numbers, and I'm talking about these codes. This is when you start to understand the structure of things. You look at the calendars. I started noticing a long time ago how the months were off based upon what they meant and where they were. It didn't make any sense, right? You're looking at things like September. We know that Sept or Sev means seven is where they get that from. Sev means step. That's why a seven looks like a step, which is also connected to Saturn. So there's a lot of codes with everything, right? So when you understand the codes, right? Seven, we know that the 8 is the infinity. I just run through the numbers a little bit. We know that the 0 represents wholeness, completion. 1 is the singularity, acknowledgement. It can be the acknowledgement of self. It could be the acknowledgement of the whole. 2 is where division starts. This is the representation of duality. Whenever somebody puts something in 2 and tell you to choose one, that's a dualistic trap. Don't even participate with anything where they try to say one or the other. That's a trick. They had to come from the same thing. There's no way they didn't, right? Because by choosing one or the other, which means they would both have to complete each other if you combine them. Think about it. So these are tricks that are masterful, that they get people to willingly play. So we're talking about the days of the week. We're talking about the months. September, October. We know that's the 8, octopus. If you just look up the meaning of things, we know that was the 8th month, the 9th, November. These things explain themselves. December, DEC, decimal, decade, 10, the 10th month. So a lot of work has been done to restructure everything, to fall along with the plans of things like religion. This is from the Gregorian calendar through Christianity, how they changed the months, all this stuff. There were months added. And one of the added months is the one that you have as Black History Month. You see? So there's a lot of different codes that we don't realize. The 52 weeks in a year. This is the same reason that you have the 52 cards in the deck. Because again, if we're talking about cards, then you have to reference the first playing cards. The first playing cards were the tarot cards. Tarot is also where you get the word Torah. What does Terra and Torah mean? I told you before. Torah just means rotate, which just means wheel. So tarot cards is a wheel card. It's like saying cards of a cycle or cards of a complete wheel or cycle. Something like that. Something that can tell the whole story, right? So in Western tarot cards, you have the 52 cards in the deck. This is why when you have playing cards, you have 52 cards in the deck. Okay? This is the same reason you have 52 weeks in your year. This is all modeled after itself. Everything is replicated larger and smaller. That's all everything is. You got to be able to see what's what when it's in a different form. That's the key. So with the 52, let's say half of that is 26. This is why you have 26 letters in your alphabet. See, they structure things by a certain number code that would mean that no matter what you did within the algorithm, you should not be able to become whole because we did not give you whole numbers to play with. We gave you halves and things of that nature. So they give you 26 letters. We know that the 52 And the Torah and the wheel is the complete cycle. We know that that is the whole thing. So to cut it in half and give you 26 letters specifically should show you that the symbolism is that you got half of what you need to even explain this whole thing. So it's even harder to reach a level of wholeness with what we've been given. You see, it is designed this way mathematically. We got to get outside of the equations. We're dealing with fractions right now. We need whole numbers, not a percentage. These are all different languages to say the same thing, right? The language of mathematics. This is why they call it the universal language. It transcends time. It is calculation. It is everything. For all this to work, there has to be an exact calculation running. This has to all exist this way because this is the way it needs to exist. Because if it didn't, maybe we wouldn't exist. So then not focusing on what's happening would put you in a better position to gain from this experience. And that's one of the toughest things to do, especially when you're dealing in your senses. And you're always trying to make sense of everything. So even when you're playing cards, you're playing with tarot cards, right? So don't get too hung up on this kind of stuff. It's all you anyway. I can take out one piece of you and highlight it and call it the devil. And that'll be the piece you always try to hide and never show in public. That's your shadow side. That doesn't mean it's not you. But if we take it away from you, put it outside of you and highlight it and say it's the devil or Satan, then you can just blame everything that you do in that realm on that. You see how that works? But really the whole time it was you taken out and highlighted and blown up for everybody to see. And everybody to shame themselves based on structures of morality. Things that aren't even real. Moral to what and to who? You have an inherent knowledge of morality. You don't need anyone to tell you how to be. You know not to hurt a person. And you say, well, some people do it. Yeah, because they have bought into all these systems and then they feel like they were kicked out by the systems, hence making them feel like they were opposite of the systems, also making them feel like whatever they do next is justified by their own actions. These are tricks. So the Torah is the Rota, which is the tarot, which is the cards, which is the 52 weeks in the year, which is the wholeness representation of your 26-lettered alphabet. When you look up the English alphabet, it is a wheel. A lot of people don't know that there's actually only 3 real letters in the alphabet. All the rest of the letters are combinations and replicas of the first 3, A, B, and C. That's why they say ABC 1, 2, 3. It's easy. That's why they say that. Because 1, 2, and 3 are the only real numbers. Everything else is a derivative of 1, 2, and 3. One way or the other. So with the alphabet, every other letter would use a curve or a straight line from the A, B, and C, and that would create everything else. You see? That's how that works as a blueprint. So there's a lot of codes just laying around, a lot of symbolism just laying around. People call it magic. You can call it whatever you want because it's only going to be whatever you believe it is. It's all in your mind anyway. I myself just like to highlight a lot of the codes. Let's take the devil, for instance, Satan, Lucifer. Why does it have so many names? First of all, it's because those are different energies, no different than Heru and Horus. It's the same person per se. It's the same persona. It's the same energy, but at a different time and under a slightly different circumstance. So we call it something different. Okay? Lucifer means light bringer. This is a reference to the pineal gland. This is not some type of entity. Why would the dark whatever be the light bringer? Does that even make sense? They call him Satan. Satan comes from the word Satan. Satan was an old organization of worship that people believed in a long time ago. They were called Satan worshipers. What was Satan? Well, it comes from the word soot. What is soot? Soot comes from the word black or blackness or melanin. It is the void. The same when they talk about it in the Bible, when they say upon the face of the deep, there was darkness upon the face of the deep. That darkness, that's melanin, that thing, that dark matter. That is where all things come from. That is where light comes from. Light comes from darkness. Think about it. Couldn't exist without it. Light needs darkness as a sort of a background. The basis. You see? People that knew that and knew that the night sky, the darkness, nature was the thing that was everything. These were called Satan worshipers, which later were known and translated in English into Satan worshipers. Because guess what? Vowels are interchangeable in etymology. They mean nothing. They only make you think you're saying a different word by exchanging an A for a U or an I or an O. It means nothing to the actual word and the energy. Vowels were only created in our language to do that exact thing, to have us vibrate harsher vibrations that are unnatural to our actual form and our head structure and everything else with our tongue. So these were put in place on purpose to stress us to even try to talk. And we only going to give you 26 letters to do it all in. You see? And then they try to give you words that mean the same thing and have the same, and mean something different and have the same vibration. There's no possible way it can mean something different and have the same vibration. It can't. So when you just look at this stuff, man, you know, the old things that they taught us really start to fall apart. They had you scared of the devil and blaming the devil for everything when there is no such thing as that. That's the energy that's in everybody. You say, well, I'm not a killer. Yes, you are. Because if somebody came to you right now, you had your baby with you and they had you and you had one chance and you got to knock this dude over the head. You got to take his neck off. You got to do something or it's going to mean the life of your child or you. What you going to do? You're going to swing. You're going to chop. Now, what I'm just trying to show you is that everything is in all of us. And we can sit here and pretend and play like it's not, but that ain't going to get you nowhere. Except further away from yourself. Shame yourself. Judging yourself. So the worshipers of the great void, of nature, of everything that is no thing, right? Because we know that all things implies no thing in particular. That's why nothing is no thing. It's all things if it's no thing, right? It's just like the word nowhere. They say you're nowhere, but the knowledge of nowhere is if you look at it close, you see now here, because nowhere implies here now. Nothing implies something. That's why I say there could never be a time when there was nothing, because that means there had to be something. How can you have nothing if there's not a something? So, Satan worshipers, the Dark Lord, whatever they want to call it, they say they blame him on the music and they say this was the god of music. They're just telling you that it's music energy that they're telling you is the devil. It's frequency and vibration, basically. It's you too, because you are also only frequency and vibration. I can only see you because you're in a certain frequency. If you was in the frequency of oxygen, I wouldn't be able to see you, right or wrong. If you was in the frequency of air, I wouldn't be able to see you. See? If you was in the frequency of radio waves or microwaves or cell phone waves or anything else, Wi-Fi, I wouldn't be able to see you. That's a different frequency. All of it's the devil under their description and definition. because they're just telling you music because that's just the muse. That's just the energy behind, the inspiration too, the light bringer, the energy, the spark. Sometimes the spark starts a fire. Does that make the spark wicked? Whatever that is? So you got to know that they got you cursing your own cosmic reflection and self by saying that Satan and the devil and all this stuff is something outside of you that you need to stay away from. That's like saying don't address anything within you that you've judged and deemed dark or negative. No, that's wrong. You need to address it and see through it. See to it so you can see through it. No such thing as a devil. Devils only exist if you believe in that. If you believe in that, then it's in your world. It's your world from your mind. Your mind is not my mind. I don't have to believe what you believe, and vice versa. You see? Just like the term vice versa. It's like an even swap, a switch, just to show things can change position and still be what they are. Either way it goes. So these things are defined and explained in many forms by many names because every name is a different set of energies. And when you take a name and you try to define it and it gives you a set of words as the definition, then you have to define those words that made the definition. And then you got to define those words. And then where does it stop? And that should kind of show you that, this whole thing is nothing and it's everything at the same time. You're nowhere by now, which makes you now here, right now. Very strange. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about a few codes, man, and just jump in freestyle and just ping around and see what it leads us to. We've gotten through a few things and hope you found a couple of these things interesting. You can look them up and research them yourself and say, what's this guy talking about? Is he telling the truth? Is this real information? It is. It's as real as you think you are. So, let's see. So we touched on the months a little bit, the days of the week, the year, the 52. A lot of you might not be familiar with the Tesla 369 code. If you're not, look that up because the 3, 6, and the 9 rule the universe too. You got the golden ratio. Those are some fun codes to look at. If you look up the golden ratio or the Fibonacci sequence, it'll show you some cool examples of how nature and life and you yourself, your body, your arms, your joints, the little breaks in your fingers, how they're all calculated under what's called the Fibonacci sequence. The spiral, what they call God's fingerprint. It's a certain calculation that everything is equating to at the same time. And nothing can be created outside of that. It's the little sections on the bees and the wasps that are measured a certain way. It's the snail, it's the sunflower, it's everything. It's the onion, it's the apple, it's the banana, it's everything. It's everything, right? You can see the 5-point star in a lot of things because the phi is just 5, which is just phi or nature, right? It's what's natural. That's why when we see somebody we like, we say, oh, they fine. We're referring to their phi, their natural symmetry, the way that they're created. There's some type of inherent beauty that you can't really describe, but you're into it, right? That is phi. That's the golden ratio. That is what they base beauty off of. When they take pictures, when they paint pictures, this is what they base the angles off of, the golden ratio. That will ultimately be your best side because it would be your best calculated side. Sounds strange, but look it up. It's pretty interesting. It even leads you out into the spiral galaxy that we're in, that we're within. So that's interesting, right? The spiral goes all the way out. Like I told you, the largest thing becomes the smallest thing again because you have the spiral of the galaxy that you ultimately realize you're within. And then you look at yourself, you look at your hands and you realize that you have spirals on the end tips of all your fingers, toes, and the top of your head because these are the ends of your body and outstretched at the ends. At the point we can get furthest out and perceive, we have the spirals again. So it's like the snake eating its own tail, the Ouroboros, right? This is something that once you start cracking these codes, this whole thing starts to keep collapsing on itself and then opening up again. like a GIF, right? Over and over. So I want to talk about some cellular stuff too next time. That's pretty interesting. Since we're talking about symbols and different connections with self and each other and how everything is just symbolic. We are all symbolic of each other. The person you're looking at and you curling up your nose at and your lip, just realize that they are symbolic of you because they are not you. So they can only be symbolic of you. You are not that exact thing right now because they are, and vice versa. So we're all playing a harmonious role with each other. If we can just realize that and stop getting caught up in the drama of the actual thing. Okay? Realize that everything is happening the way it's supposed to and how it's supposed to. And that's the only thing it can do. It can't do anything else. Free will is just the right to interfere. And when you mess with things you don't understand, this is what causes actual fear. So let's hear again that free will is the right to interfere. Okay? So all these things are calculated into this thing we're doing. But you got to realize that a lot of it you're doing and then you're causing it to do you. So you can step away, get a clearer view of everything, realize what's symbolic, and realize how even our perception is only symbolic at best. So this whole thing we're creating is within. They told you in the Bible that heaven is within you. So everything else is as well. They give it to you as a place outside of you because, remember, into the actual heavens of the sky and what we call the galaxy, that is us as well. It is just the largest form of us. So if they're showing it to you that way, you still got to know to take this stuff inside. You still got to know. Okay? So, this has just been a little, let me see, about an hour episode. And, I just wanted to talk symbols. I just felt like talking some symbols real quick. So I hope you get something from it. And don't forget to email me with any kind of questions or just keep contacting me. Let me know what you're thinking, what you want to talk about, what you want to hear us or hear me talk about right now until I can get this equipment upgrade finalized and get these guys in here for some great conversation that we have off the microphone a lot. And, they're really worth having on the microphone. So that's how we came up with the whole thing anyway. So thanks again, repeat listeners, first-time listeners, welcome to the show. Just, this is a place where you can get different concepts and different things to think about. There's going to be outside of the norm and what they call the norm. All right. So this has been an episode of My 3 Cents, and I appreciate your time. Right. And last thing I want to say to you is wholeness, wholeness, wholeness.